Now that's how you start a season. That's how you kick off a season with a walk-off win. What's going on, guys? Welcome to the First Pitch 305, Season 3, Episode 3. And I'm your host, Alex Aguirre. And I just got back home from opening day at Lone Depot Park. And man, that's how you start a season with a packed house. The vibes were electric. I don't know when's the last opening day that it had that many fans, but also the fans were that into the game from start to finish. It had everything, all the makings for a great opening day, from the pitching matchup to just like a fresh start. You felt something different in this opening day. And clearly it was. For out of the 26-man roster, 17 of those guys, it was their first opening day. So there was, I guess, that sense of like, okay, new beginnings. There's definitely going to be still some growing pains, but you got to like how they started the season and how they won this game as well. They're going up against Paul Skeens, the reigning National League Rookie of the Year. Nasty stuff. He even added a couple more pitches to his already amazing arsenal of pitches. So it was going to look like a long day at the office. On the other side, with Sandy Alcantara, he was making his first start since 2023, of September of 2023. He missed all of 2024 with Tommy John surgery, recovering from that, getting back, into 100% health. And it showed. It showed in spring training. He was phenomenal in spring training. And that transferred over into opening day from the jump. First batter he faced was Tommy Pham, struck him out looking on high heat. And he kind of set that pace straight right from the beginning of the start until the end. Kind of, he ran out of gas, but we're gonna get to that in a bit. But it was just really nice to see before the game. Just the stadium almost filled. They opened up the highest level of the stadium, and it was almost filled as well. So almost a sold out house for opening day, which is really, really nice to see, especially considering what happened last season and the fire sale and everything. It was just nice to see like the fans still rallying around the home team. And they were there from straight from the jump. There was no Cuban time. There was no Miami time. It was filled fairly quick. And by first pitch, all the fans were pretty much there. And also they had Dan Marino throwing out the first pitch, and Flo Rida, he was there. They had a good musical performance after the game as well. So that brought in a lot of fans to opening day. So it just had it was a good culmination of a lot of things, and the stars were definitely aligned today for the Miami Marlins. And for opening day, I get chills all the time. For opening day, no matter what, it just takes me back to at the old stadium, going as a fan with my dad, and then even going with my dad here at the new stadium. Opening days is very special for a lot of baseball fans because it's the start of something new and hopefully something great, or something in the right direction, depending on where your team is at. And I guess the Marlins fall in that sense. Is clean slate, a lot of new faces. Let's see what happens and see if they can just scrap and compete. And that was kind of the formula for today, is seeing that scrappiness, seeing that hard nosed team that's not gonna give up after they gave up a couple of runs. They're down by 3 or 4, which was kind of what you saw last year. Once the Marlins were down by a few runs, you kind of had the feeling, not only in the stands, but also like you can feel it amongst the team that they kind of already took the foot off the gas, and they kind of they're already beat mentally and physically. So no one's beat physically yet. It's first game of the season, so a long way to go. But in terms of the game, let's get into it, kind of inning by inning, or try to give a recap here. But like I said, Sandy was electric from the jump and struck out Tommy Pham looking, and he was racking up the strikeouts really quick. He was throwing a no-hitter for the first four and 2/3 innings. He only gave up one walk, and that was the only base runner he allowed in that stretch. On the other side of things, Paul Skeens, he was electric as well, racking up the strikeouts, and the Marlins were able to scrap a run off him in the third inning with an RBI ground out thanks to Xavier Edwards. That was the only damage, I guess, and Marlins really weren't getting a lot of hard contact, except I do got to give a shout out to Derek Hill. He did tell me after the game in the clubhouse that the double he hit, which was the first hit of the season for the Marlins, that was probably the hardest ball he's ever hit, and I think that came off 112 off the bat. So, he was good just to get that. He felt good just to get that knock out of the way. And the way he did it too, he was very proud of. So a little shout out to Derek Hill for setting the tone on offense for the Marlins this season. But going back to the pitching side, Sandy was great. It looked like he didn't have any rust whatsoever. But let's get into where things start to kind of fall apart a little bit for Sandy. And according to Nick, who was catching him today after the game, he said that he probably, Sandy looked like he was running out of gas a little bit. And you can see it, his pitch count was up, I think, towards the end, but once he was taken out of the game, he was already past 90 pitches. So there, the leash was pretty long for him, considering he hasn't pitched in a very, very, very long time in a live MLB game. So let's get to the fifth inning here, top of the fifth, and Sandy's rolling. He strikes out the first two guys of the innings. There's 2 outs. He's just one more to complete the outing to get a win or a loss, and he would have been in line for the win if he would have completed that third inning and retiring the side in order. But here's where things get kind of tricky, and here's where kind of things start running out of gas, as Nick said post game. So Sandy strikes out the first 2 guys of the inning. Then he gives up a single to right center field to Hayes, Pittsburgh's third baseman. And then they intentionally walk the ninth hitter of Pittsburgh's lineup to go to the top of the order, Tommy Pham. Now, at this point in the game, Tommy Pham has struck out twice against Sandy. So I understand the gamble there. Yeah, you're putting another guy on base. There's 2 outs, and Sandy's already shown that he's dominated this batter. The problem is, though, that with men on first and second, Sandy ends up walking Pham. So now the bases are loaded, and up comes Brian Reynolds, who's one of their better hitters as well. And he smacks a line drive up the middle, and he brings in 2 runs. And by that point, there was already a mound visit. So after the base hit by Reynolds, 2 runs come in. Pittsburgh is up 2-1 over Miami, and Clayton McCullough comes out of the dugout for his first pitching change of his managerial career and the first pitching change of the Marlins for the 2025 season. And out of the bullpen comes Lake Bachar. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his last name right, but I'm just call him Lake. Lake comes out of the bullpen. He's the first reliever for the Marlins this season, and he he strikes out the following batter. So he limits the damage. Okay, good. So we move on to the next inning. Marlins are still down 2-1. They are held scoreless in the 5th. Skeens is still out there. He's pitching well. Then we go to the 6th inning. Sandy's already out of the game. Lake is back out there. I think he's back out there for the next inning. Yeah, so he went back out there for the following inning. He completed the 6th inning, but in the 6th inning, he gave up a 2-run homer to Nick Gonzalez for the Pirates. So now the Pirates are up 4-1. Lake completes the inning. He gets out of it. Damage is set there. No more. And now the Marlins are in a little bit of a hole here, 4-1. Now this is where I go back to last season when games like this were happening for Miami, down 4-1 early or in the middle of a game, 5-2, 6-2 around there. Like, you're still somewhat in it. The deficit isn't that extreme, but it did feel extreme for the Marlins last season. They just couldn't muster up any offense, couldn't score. That fight that I'm sure they had it. It just didn't materialize. So I'm not going to question anyone's effort. That's not my place, but it just never materialized into comebacks, fighting, and trying to push it for extra innings, things like that, or getting it close, cutting the deficit, chipping away, that type of fighting mentality. And the comeback was on for Miami, and you didn't feel like they were out of it. Okay, like there were some rumblings. Oh man, here we go again. It's 4-1. That might be game. This was the game to get in this 4-game series, especially with Sandy out there. So, and he didn't have the greatest start, or he couldn't complete the 5th inning. So now it sounds like this 3-run deficit, it seems like a 6-run, deficit. So the comeback is on for Miami. And in the 6th inning, they get a little bit of a rally against Paul, and they score a run on a wild pitch. Okay, so they're chipping away. They couldn't get that big hit. They had other runners on base that inning. They couldn't get the big hit, but still, they chipped. They got runners in scoring position. They would have made things happen, and they took advantage of a pass ball. Actually, I did record it as a wild pitch at first, but then the comms team in the press box, they clarified it was a pass ball. But still, Marlins scored 4-2 now. Now we're moving on. Both teams held scoreless in the 7th inning. Marlins bullpen is now shaping to form. You know, a couple of guys today, especially Soriano, he pitched 2 scoreless innings, and the first inning of relief, the 7th inning, a little bit shaky. He had 2 guys on base, less than 2 outs, was able to get out of that jam, come back out there for the 8th inning, keep Pittsburgh scoreless again. So the Soriano is keeping Miami in this game. And he was one of the guys that was mentioned that could be one of the long relievers. Marlins normally have a traditional long man out of their bullpen, like a 6 starter or 7 starter or whatever. But Soriano was used like that last year in multiple innings, 4 batters, 5 batters, those type of outings. So he was able to complete 2 scoreless innings of relief. Huge for Miami. That was massive because, like I said, keeps him in the game. Now let's go to the 8th inning. In the 8th inning, they have a bit of a 2-out rally, especially with the bottom half of the lineup. And that's highlighted with singles by Otto Lopez and Dane Myers. They were able to, with 2 outs, with Otto Lopez, Kyle Stowers, he leads off the inning with a walk and gets into scoring position. And then Matt Mervis wasn't able to bring him in or move him over. So now there's 2 outs in the inning. And then what do we have? Oh yeah, we're in here in the 8th inning. My bad, guys. I want to record right away because I'm really pumped up after this win. It was really nice. But yeah, like I said, Stowers, he led off the inning with a walk, and then Mervis struck out. So now there's 2 outs because Bride, he grounded out as well. So now there's man on second, Stowers, and here comes Otto Lopez, and he singles off the end of the bat. He just flares one to right center field. That brings in Stowers. Otto Lopez advanced to second on the throw home. So now Marlins have another guy in scoring position, and there's 2 outs. Dane Myers is up. Now, Dane Myers didn't start the game. He came in as a pinch hitter, I believe for Conine, because Pittsburgh threw a lefty out there from one of the relievers. So the Marlins wanted to take advantage in that at-bat, so they put in a righty in there with Myers. And he struck out, though, in his first at-bat with a couple guys on base. I believe that was in the 6th inning. The Marlins were only able to score on that wild pitch. So he struck out with some guys on base. But now we're back. Now fast forward to the 8th inning. And Myers is up again. And Lopez is in scoring position. And he keeps the line moving, the rally alive, singles up the middle, brings in Lopez. And now the Marlins are tied 4-4. Now we got a ball game, and we're heading into the late. Now we're in the late innings. It can go either way now, and that type of fight, especially with 2 outs, great pitcher on the mound with Skeens. You're able to force him out of the game. Now you're into the Pittsburgh bullpen in the 8th inning, and you're able to get to them as well. And those are all really good signs. Working at bats, working a lot of walks as well. They were able to get a couple with Paul, and then in Pittsburgh bullpen, I think almost every reliever had a walk as well. So the Marlins don't have a lot of thump in that lineup, but they're able to manufacture runs and put pressure on the opposing team and pitchers by getting guys on base. And they do have a lot of speed as well. So and that's going to play into the rest of the season, is utilizing that speed and putting pressure on the opposing team and their defense. So now Marlins are tied. They don't score anymore after that in the 8th inning. Jesus Tinoco, he goes out for the 9th. Kind of like Soriano, he gets in a little bit of trouble with guys on multiple guys on base, but he strikes out the last batter of the 9th to get to the 3rd out and close the book on Pittsburgh once again. Marlins bullpen, they bent, but they didn't break, and you know what? That's okay with me. At the end of the day, they did their job. They kept them in the game. Let's go to the 9th inning. The Marlins didn't waste any time to respond and try to put an end to this as soon as possible, not let it get to extras. So Nick Fortes, Miami's catcher, he leads off the inning, and he smacks a shot off to straightaway center field, off the wall. O'Neill Cruz in center, he kind of reads it, misplays it off the wall. He lets it goes over his head, bounces off the wall, and then it goes past him. It took a really hard bounce off the wall. So Nick, after the game, talking about getting a triple. The last time he got a triple was in 2022, so there's been some time since his last triple, and he was saying that initially he thought it was going to be a double, but once he saw that ball ricochet off the wall really hard like that and get past Cruz, that's when he said he thought to himself that he can get a triple, and he did easily. So he's on third base. Clayton, he takes Fortes out of the game, puts Javier Sanoja on third base to be the pinch runner. Has got a lot of speed, so on a short fly ball, maybe he can score on a sac fly because he's got the legs to do it. And then Pittsburgh decides to intentionally walk Xavier Edwards. Now there's runners on first and third. Xavier steals second. They're not covering second because infield's playing in. So now Marlins have second and third and no out. So they're in a great position here. They're in a great spot. The hitter at the plate is Kyle Stowers. He was hitting second today for Miami. So you can see Pittsburgh's strategy. They decided to go against one of Miami's struggling hitters going into the new season. Stowers didn't have a very good spring training. And in today's game, he struck out twice, but he also had 2 walks. That goes back to what I said earlier, that Miami was, manufacturing runs and base runners different ways by, seeing a lot of pitches and working at bats. So Stowers did have 2 walks today, but he didn't have the greatest spring offensively. So then here comes Stowers, and he just unloads on a 96-mile-per-hour fastball, smacks it line drive down the right field line. No one was going to catch it. So even if they caught it, like, Sano was going to score easily. But smacks it down the right field line. It's a single. Sanoja scores easily. Ball game. And the Marlins storm out of there, of the dugout, and they're all celebrating in center field practically, mobbing Stowers. And it was just a feel-good win. The stadium erupted. I don't know when's the last time I heard a Marlins game in terms of the fans erupting like that. I've heard it for other games like the World Baseball Classic and the Serie del Caribe, but not for a game for the Miami Marlins. I don't know when's the last time I heard something like that. And it was great. Obviously in the press box, you got to be composed. You got to be cool about it. But internally, if I got chills, it felt good to see just everyone rallying around the team like that. And for once, because it depends, the Mets in town, Braves, Dodgers, you're going to have more away team fans for those type of games. So it was good to see a lot of Marlins representation in the stands. And, Marlins are starting off the season 1-0. You can't say that they're going to go on a stretch like they did last year to start the season going 0-9. That's not to say, though, that the Marlins are going to have their lumps, especially when they reach the dog days of summer. Like I said to start the podcast, 17 players on this opening day roster. This is their first opening day. And for some who have played opening days before, like Graham Pauley, he was on San Diego's opening day roster last year, but he's still super young. And not a lot of MLB experience to begin with. So, yeah, you have some guys with MLB experience, but not a grand amount. You got about a handful of guys, and that's it. And that's, like I said, with Fortes, Sandy, and a couple guys in the bullpen like Bender. So that's gonna be it here for this episode. I wanted to keep it short and just share my thoughts and probably a little game recap. But yeah, that's a great way to start the season. Yeah, I believe that's like the first time they win their opening day at home since 2014. In a regular season, I believe they won in 2020, but that's obviously the abridged season. And I remember 2014 opening day. That's when Casey McGee introduced himself to us as Hits McGee, and he was just on an offensive tear. I think Brad Hand got a 3-inning save there because the Marlins were killing it offensively. Garrett Jones was on that team, so it was just one, but it was that long ago. And I remember that game. That the fans, the attendance for that game was nowhere near the energy and the attendance for today. And that says a lot. That was 11 years ago now. A lot of downs, not a lot of highs, a lot of downs in that 11-year stretch. And to see after all that, the output, for the fans and what they brought today, I'm not saying it's going to be like that every game. Opening day always draws like the biggest crowd, especially for the Marlins. But still, if the Marlins can, compete and just show some fight, who knows how the attendance can be moving forward. But it's just a great way to start the season on a high note. The vibes were great in the clubhouse. Everyone was happy. Everyone was rallying for each other. Clayton McCullough got his first managerial win of his career, knocks that out of the way. So a lot of firsts for a few guys. And yeah, it was great to see just the team rallying around one another, fighting back. Great comeback win. Could be a formula for the season moving forward in terms of manufacturing and putting together hits and walks and stolen bases and playing small ball. So we'll see. Just game one of 162. We got 161 more to go, but it was great to see, and that's the right way to start a season. That's how you send a message that, hey, we're a young, kind of little naive team, little bit inexperienced, but we're gonna go out there and we're gonna fight, we're gonna compete, and we're gonna try to put a good product out there every time because the fans deserve it, because they've been through a lot, and you can feel they sense that, and they did acknowledge the crowd as well. They felt something different for the players who have played in this stadium for a while. They did notice a difference, and that says a lot as well. And that can motivate them too, and that can bring energy to the clubhouse as well. So everything clicked. Stars were aligned today on March 27th, 2025. Marlins 1-0. You can't say they didn't start the season 1-0 this year. So congratulations to the Fish. And it's going to do it for First Pitch 305, Season 3, Episode 3. I'm your host, Alex Aguirre. And don't forget to follow Lemon City Live on all social media platforms and check us out on lemoncitylive.com. And remember, guys, let's go Fish.